All right. Welcome to today's discussion on challenges facing high-tech manufacturers and how IFS ERP can help overcome those challenges. My name is Jay Gentle, and I'm the Channel Sales Director at Enterprise Consulting. Enterprise Consulting is a platinum channel partner for IFS, and this year we're celebrating 20 years of delivering services to manufacturers that use IFS in their businesses. Joining me is Bob Corrigan. Bob is VP of Established Accounts for IFS. And IFS is a global ERP software company with deep solutions that help the needs of high-tech manufacturers. IFS helps companies across many sectors of discrete manufacturing. And while there are common issues and challenges faced by all discrete manufacturers, our discussion today is going to focus on ways that IFS helps companies that manufacture high-tech equipment. Things like printed circuit boards, electronic components, radio equipment, RF equipment, and things that go into other equipment, traditionally electronic-based. Bob, tell us about some of the challenges that you're hearing from your customers that are in the high-tech manufacturing industry.
All right. Yep. Thanks, Jay. Well, I mean, this particular industry is under the same pressures that most of the manufacturing sector is under. However, there's some very specifics in high-tech manufacturing for global competition. Traditionally, a lot of this has moved to Korea, to China. A lot of that has moved even to countries like Israel. So there's a fair amount of, globalization that's taken place, a lot of offshoring for some of the fabless semiconductor manufacturers, to get those products actually produced and shipped back so they can get integrated into circuit boards, power supplies, all the different things that are out there. And as part of that, the supply chain of recent, particularly these last 2 years, there's been a lot of disruption. So as a part of that disruption, they've been doing merger acquisition activities. So that whole company consolidations, people are, buying some of their fabless semiconductor design groups. They're buying equipment to make their own circuit boards and, get those assembled and inserted. And that's made a fairly large change in this particular sector. There are some giant organizations, AMD and, Texas Instruments and Intel, but, there is a large number of them that have gone through these company consolidations, really just to give more global footprint and more supply chain management so that they can ensure that when they need something, they can get it. The biggest one you hear now, obviously, is in the automotive sector. The lack of certain components that they need to manufacture some of the high-end control systems, in vehicles. And, you can't just flip a switch to, create chip foundries and things to make those fast. So it's continues to be a big focus, particularly in the high tech, whether you're doing circuit boards or you're doing electrical components or you're doing electronic components. And then, part of this is, more and more of the machine you see there on the right when you get into, insert machines and EEPROM machines. A lot of that is, that whole embracing that digital transformation so you can act faster with higher quality. There's a lot of demand in this particular industry to make sure that components meet specifications. When you get into resistors and integrated circuit boards and capacitors. So, there's a lot of demand, and having those automated machines that can do that test on the fly before it's inserted into the circuit board, so you don't have a circuit board failure, from a component that wouldn't have passed its quality test. A lot of those things are becoming automated and electronic, and that's really critical, that whole digital transformation. And then the other area, this particular group is affected by is regulatory. There's been some regulatory requirements that have been around for a while. The reduction of hazardous substances, RoHS, REACH, and then, one of the more recent ones is the waste electrical and electronic equipment regulations that are in place. And this really means that, you have to prove your boards don't have, mercury and lead, that you are making circuits that can be reclaimed and will not end up in, landfills. So a lot of those requirements are in this industry that are not necessarily in some of the other industries at the same level. And then, obviously everybody's facing the skilled labor shortage. This is in some cases, it can be more of a routine type of a production line job, and finding those people that can do those jobs is getting, pretty hard. So that's why more and more mechanization and automation is coming into play.
Great. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for that insight. So tell us a bit about how IFS can package and deliver a solution to help high-tech manufacturers.
Yeah. So, I mean, IFS specifically has, a lot of functionality that we can apply that really helps high-tech manufacturers. Some of that is that whole mixed mode manufacturing strategy on the left, where you may have, first article creation, you may have, high volume make to stock for, components, but then you're actually assembling or making to order the actual circuit board or the power supply. In some cases, you have to do specific engineering to a specific requirement. So if you're doing control systems, a lot of those are more that engineer to order. So, IFS has the ability to mix and match your manufacturing mode to your need, and all in one plant, all seamlessly, including, Kanban and a lot of things on demand driven. So there's a lot of things we do in our manufacturing strategies that really lend themselves very well to the high-tech manufacturing sector. And then a lot of it is around traceability. So we have a lot of things in our product lifecycle management for, tracking, whether or not the component has a controlled substance, whether it has a conflict metal involved. Any of those types of things can be tracked as part of our product lifecycle management right into the inventory part. And so we have a lot of those. And then in the lower right-hand side, like I said, just the ability to comply and produce high quality reports that are, accurate, is something that we have focused on for many, many, many years and is applied in this industry.
Great. I know this slide talks a bit to some of the key capabilities that IFS delivers to this marketplace as well.
Yeah. And, again, I talked about multi-mode manufacturing. A lot of that is right now trying to make it very easy for operators, to visually drag and drop and see exactly what's happening. So that's something that, IFS has real depth in. I'll talk a little bit more about it. Same thing with quality management, life cycle management, traceability, sustainability. Why don't you jump to the next slide and I'll talk a little bit more about some of those things.
Sounds good.
So, visual planning and scheduling, I mean, as I said, you have some of these roles, that might be highly repetitive production line types of environment, and being able to see whether or not you have the right material at the right point in time, being able to constantly reschedule, to schedule things in blocks based on the optimum lot size that you're trying to produce, all of those types of things, sequencing, if you have where you're doing, producing a product like a ferro core, and you have to, go through several operations to produce the right core at the right quality. So a lot of those things, making it very easy for the operators, and the shop floor supervisors, to really run the operations, whether you're using production schedules, whether you're using, discrete make to order types of operations and shop orders, having that, and IFS has a lot of depth in that area. And I think if you jump over to the next one, Jay, the other one, like I said, there's a lot of demand for high quality, yield by operation, making sure that as you produce the product that it can meet the voltage and amperage and impedance requirements that you might have, and having all of those things in place in control plans, in, statistical control, process control, SPC charting, go through a certain acceptance sampling so that, if you start to see defects, you can increase your sampling size. As your defect go down, you can reduce your sampling size. Those are all automatic and dynamic within IFS. And then, audit management for suppliers, non-conformance throughout the entire application, the whole corrective and preventive management capabilities, and then FMEAs, and then integrated document management. So a lot of this specific to the high-tech sector is a big benefit to have that quality in one system, the same system that you use for everything else.
Definitely. And I think the next one you wanted to touch on a little bit more is on traceability.
Yeah, traceability again comes back to, a lot of these, you're going to have lot numbers of chips that you might be using, or capacitors or transformers. and knowing which boards those went into or which sub-assemblies it went into, if it's a power supply, a controller, or a control system, so that when something goes wrong that you see out in the field on one, you know where that might pop up other places so that you can figure out how you're going to handle the claims, whether or not it has to go to a level of potentially a recall, if it's a fire hazard or something like that, specific in the electrical industry, they have that fire hazard requirements that they have to meet. So, that's something that having that traceability, IFS has full traceability, where used, all kinds of, certificate of analysis, pretty much anything that you need. We have that ability throughout the application and really helps to ensure that you have the ability to meet that demand. So if you need it, and not have to spend a lot of hours and time looking through paper and old transactions to try to track it. It's all automated in IFS.
Yeah, I can see that would be of huge value to this manufacturing sector. This is a newer topic, one you mentioned a little bit earlier, but talk a bit more about sustainability management.
Yeah, sustainability. I mean, IFS has a sustainability module that's been in our application for, a decade. And, really it meets all of the requirements that have been dreamt about, particularly in some countries in Europe. They've actually put them into effect, on emissions requirements and, substance traceability. We use this in a lot of different industries, in food and beverage for allergens and, for this industry, it would be whether or not it's, containing one of the controlled elements that they don't want to have in product, or whether or not you're getting into things like now conflict metals and, being able to prove, your traceability on your conflict metal. So a lot of those things are there. IFS has all of that within the application, and that really helps our customers to meet those, ISO 1401 requirements and the REACH requirements, the global reporting initiative that's underway, and a lot of, more and more demand. You're going to see your product cannot go into a landfill. You have to have a plan when you build it to, decommission it in a eco-friendly type of environment. And more that really affects the electrical manufacturers.
Yeah, for sure. I hear a lot about that. So both IFS and Enterprise Consulting have worked with a lot of high-tech manufacturers over the years in helping their businesses. Maybe you can tell us about a couple of them. Oops.
Sure. Yep. So, I mean, we have a vast array of, these types of companies. If you take one like Channel Products there, they make piezoelectric igniters, go down to MPS, monolithic power systems. They make a full family of power integrated circuit controls, SCRs, a vast array of component level things. If you go over to like a Data IO right in the middle of that second row, they make the equipment that actually does the EEPROM programming and the actual insert into the circuit board itself, on the fly testing and everything. So they make more of a full circuit solution. Gables, right to the right of them, they actually make radio equipment for aircraft. And, they maintain and manufacture their own circuit boards, their own liquid crystal displays, just because of the quality requirements in the aerospace sector. And then you'll get somebody that's, more highly repetitive, like Spang Magnetics down there in the middle on the bottom. They actually manufacture ferrite cores. And then, right above them, Pole Zero makes a lot of filter equipment that goes into radar systems and microwave systems. Just a pretty vast array of companies that we have helped out.
Yeah, for sure. So good. Really appreciate your insights today again, Bob, and thank you everyone for your time. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any further questions or want to learn more about how IFS and Enterprise Consulting can support your high-tech manufacturing company.